If you're using Airtable to streamline your business or your workflow, you are going to love this video because I'm going to be breaking down the top 5 things that anyone should know before they start taking Airtable seriously on any project that they are working on. So if you're ready to learn my 5 key takeaways after using Airtable for nearly a decade, stick around and let's get into it. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth, and this is Gap Consulting. It's my mission to help you unlock the full potential of Airtable and the related tools in this software space. And in this video, as I said, I'm going to be giving you some cheat codes, 5 tips, things that I wish that I knew when I first started using Airtable. This is going to be perfect for anyone who is just starting out with Airtable or someone who's been using it for a while and is ready to unlock the next level. Now, before I get to the heart of the video, I first want to invite you to join me for some free training. I've put together an Airtable crash course that I'll deliver to your inbox when you sign up at gapconsulting.io/airtable-crash-course. This crash course is going to go through all the basics of Airtable in much more detail than this video, so make sure to sign up for free at the link and I'll share that wherever you found this video. So now let's hop into my top 5 things, the top 5 tips for learning how to truly master Airtable when you're setting out on your next project. Let's kick it off with number 1, and it's about interfaces and how they're very different from the database layer. My key takeaway here is that interfaces are the product, where the database layer is the engine. So if you think about the way that you would build, before we had interfaces, we had to share everything directly inside of Airtable. Here I am inside of the data layer, and you know that by looking up at the top, and you can see that I am selected here on data. This is where we build all of our tables. You'll add your records here. You can add new fields to the right or left. Everything kind of happens on the back end, but this is kind of like admin level privileges. This is the engine that's going to power our application. But when we actually go live, when we deploy this, even if it's just for our own personal use, what we want to be accessing is the interface layer. Interfaces lives here, and it will be a reflection on what you have in the database. But the thing is, the database has very little protection. Pretty much anybody who has access to the data layer can delete records, they could add new fields, everything is at their disposal, and it doesn't give you a lot of control over how people access this. The other problem with the data layer is that it's difficult to filter what people see, so they'll very likely become overwhelmed by a huge amount of data as your database expands over time. Interfaces is where you get to lock all of this down. So inside of interfaces, whether you build with AI or build it yourself, you can then cultivate the exact user experience that you're looking for. Yes, you can create different view types, whether you want to display your information on calendars or Kanbans or roadmaps or lists. All of these are available options, but you can also select what actually comes in. You can apply filters to the data layer so that only certain elements actually come in. For example, let's say you're looking at inquiry call data and you want to see the forward-facing data. You can filter it so that you only see the records that are in the future. None of the historical data is actually going to come in. And by making simple filters like this, you give your users a much better user experience. They don't have to go hunting for the information. They're not going to get overwhelmed by too much data. Instead, you get to show them exactly what they need to see when they need to see it. And you can also have full control over what they're allowed to edit, if anything. You can deny them the ability to delete records. You can deny the ability for them to edit certain information and only allow them to edit what you want them to edit. So the interface layer gives you full control. And the thing is, this is kind of funny because interfaces have been around for a while now, at least what feels like 1.5 years. But the reality is, even though they've been around for quite a while, our clients consistently, when we start working with somebody, our clients are very infrequently using interfaces. So although it's a mature feature that's been around for quite a bit now, very few companies are actually using them unless they've actually leveraged a consulting firm or something similar. They have true Airtable builders on their team. So if you're using interfaces inside of your organization and your Airtable workflows, you're probably in the top 5 to 10% of Airtable users based on my experience. So this one change can really dramatically impact the way your organization adopts Airtable. My number 2 key tip for you is that formulas are not the logic that you once thought they were. Automations are now where all the logic and all the magic can really happen. Now, that might sound like a slightly controversial take, so let me break down exactly what I mean here. Hopping back into my screen, we could imagine that we have a formula field. Now, we used to use formula fields a lot. We still do, but in the earlier days of Airtable, formula fields were basically how you did any kind of logical thinking inside of your database. You could write a formula that analyzes different components of a record and, for example, creates a status field and says, well, if the complete box is checked, then obviously this status is complete. And if it's not checked, then the status is incomplete. I mean, this is a basic example for a formula, but you get the idea. We created tons of formulas that drove logic. But now, in 2026 and beyond, automations have really taken over for us. And the way that that happens is, rather than having a formula field update whenever statuses change and the record matures, instead, you can build an automation that will do the logic for you. So inside of our automations, we could create a process that says, hey, under certain conditions, we are going to update the information that triggered this record. And so rather than having a formula field reflect that change and update with a new status or something similar, you can now go ahead and update information inside of your record itself with automation. So for example, maybe an automation updates your status to complete, but that isn't where you stop. You can then add a date time field as well back in your data layer. Let's go ahead and add a new date field. And then in our automation, we can actually stamp when that automation actually performed its action. So now not only are you able to see the updated status, but you can come in, add your date field, bring in the actual time that the automation ran, just like this. Bringing in the actual runtime, timestamping your record, and updating the status is way more powerful than relying on a formula field. So again, to kind of retrace our steps here, I'm suggesting that using automation to empower complex logic in your database is far superior than the simple formula field of early Airtable days. Now that Airtable is a more mature product, leveraging automation, including date timestamps in the automation process, is the new gold standard. That takes me to my tip number 3, and it's all about single select fields. Single select fields are a power that need to be embraced. A lot of times people will shy away from single select fields because they feel that a text field gives them more freedom. And it's true, that is a fact, that a text field has very few restrictions. Here I have a single line text, and here in the notes field, a long text. And we could write any alphanumeric string that we want in either of these. And the key difference between the two of them, the single line text does not have carriage returns, whereas in the long text, I can write some information and then actually do some carriage returns, and we see that added here. These fields are great, but let's not sleep on single select fields, because single select fields empower so much more, and they make our Airtable apps much easier to filter, and they help power automations, as you just saw in tip number 2. So what is a single select field? It's a field type where we can simply give a predefined list of choices for our users and automations to include. It locks down permissions for us in the sense that if we don't want to leave something open-ended, a single select field can reduce the number of variables to a finite number. We can use single select fields to track things like a status, things like progress, to see the stage that something is in over time as it moves through a process. There are tons of different use cases for the single select. Each option that we add can be colored uniquely if we'd like, and you can add as many options as you care for here. It is capped at some 100 number of choices, but very rarely does anyone ever get there. But note that you can add as many as you'd like within reason, just by adding, changing the color, typing in whatever different options you want, and then you can also choose a default. The default is powerful because when somebody adds a new record, if they don't choose one of the other options, the default will take precedence. So if I say test is the default stage here, when I add a new record without stipulating what the single select should be, test, the default value, is automatically filled out for me. So this is a fantastic way for you to organize your data, make it more easily filterable, and builds better interfaces. Back to tip number 1, because the single select field shows up beautifully. You can filter, you can group, you can color code. It is the superpower field that many people just kind of glaze over when it comes to Airtable building. Now into tip number 4, your database schema is far more important than pretty much anything else that's happening in your Airtable apps. What is your database schema? It is all of the tables and how they interrelate to each other in your database. Hopping back into our screen, every single table here that we add into our data layer is another component of our schema. Don't be afraid of creating new tables, but do create tables consciously. A table is exactly a data set. So for whatever your solution is that you're building for, your data set will be bigger or smaller depending on the complexity of the workflow that you're managing. Take an example like a CRM, a client relationship management tool. A CRM deals with people and usually tracks some kind of deal flow or pipeline. The other thing, though, is that these people that it's tracking are often associated with accounts. So each of these words that I've kind of thrown out just as we talk through this example is its own data set. Imagine that you have 3 contacts, people. That is a table with 3 records. And those 3 people might work at 3 different companies, or they could all work at one company. That company or account is another table. Then you're going to track deal flow, and each deal that you have is going to be associated with a person or people. It's going to be associated with the company or companies involved, and then it might have other components as well. So just off the top, talking through a simple example, we have 3 unique tables: people or contacts, companies or accounts, and then the ultimate deal itself. And so this data schema, interrelating our different tables, building the tables appropriately in Airtable, and linking them together, this is the key to anything you build in Airtable. And if you don't get this right, your data schema level, everything else is for nothing, because the data schema is going to drive the success of the Airtable app. One quick tip for you, a bonus tip if you will, if you have extensions available based on your Airtable plan, in the upper right corner inside the data layer, click on Tools and go to Extensions. This is going to open up the ability to add extensions, and Airtable has a schema extension called Base Schema. This is powered and provided by Airtable, and you can add this to your database. It gives you a nice way to visualize the different tables and how they're interrelated. So in our example, we have the simple 3 tables. We haven't actually connected any of them, but just like this, you can see what the different tables are and what their different fields are. Each table can be moved around. You can zoom in and out of this thing, and it's a great way for you to visualize what you've built. It's very valuable, especially as you build more complex situations that have 10, 20 tables all interacting. This extension is going to be your friend. It's going to help you keep your ducks in a row when it comes to managing your schema. Now let's wrap it up with number 5, the probably biggest tip here is that when you're building an Airtable, design for the future. Don't design for your problem today. Try to think a couple steps ahead. Now, this could be a little difficult if you are newer to this, but as you practice this muscle will get stronger and you will get better at this very action. But the core takeaway here is that when you're building an Airtable, if you're solving the exact problem today without thinking forward a bit, you're not probably future-proofing your solution. And what will happen is as your business evolves, as your process grows or changes a little bit, your Airtable database will have to change with it. It will evolve over time. No database is printed and carved in stone. It's not a complete finished product. It's ever evolving, just as your business process, just as your workflows are. So give room for flexibility when you are building an Airtable. If you think that you might have something new, some changes coming down the pipe, well, plan for that now. Think about what impact that will have on your Airtable database, particularly your schema from tip number 4, and build in a way that allows you to future-proof that. Use more of those single select fields, lean more into automation and less into formulas, and certainly strive to implement more interfaces so that your team sees the information they need. All of these tips kind of culminate in tip number 5. It's all about future-proofing. I hope you got a ton of value from this video, and if you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you see more content like this. Of course, if you have questions we did not answer, swing by our website because we have a ton of resources for you, and you can even sign up for a strategy call to have a free call with our team to get clarity on your next steps with Airtable. I do hope you enjoyed this one, but of course, the most important thing of all, keep on building.